Bonjour and welcome to our program. Since the reopening of Notre-Dame de Paris, it seems that the interest of the cathedrals in the world has been boosted. The French weekly Le Point has recently published a series of articles on the most beautiful cathedrals in the world, and among them, the Cathedral of Chartres. So we are particularly delighted to have as our guest today, Dominique Lallement. She is a member of the Comité-Tricolore, but she is also the president of the American Friends of the Chartres. Dominique, bonjour. Uh, so let's start with the beginning. How was your association founded and by whom?
Okay, so American Friends of Chartres was established in 2005. Yes, about 20 years ago. Time flies. By a lady named Monica Riley, who had worked with the World's Monuments Fund. And through friends, she was introduced to Jean and Servane de Matisse, who were the co-founder of Chartres Sanctuaire du Monde, a French nonprofit organization dedicated to raising funding for the cathedral. And they wanted to explore how to expand both the fundraising and the radiancy of the cathedral in the United States. So they met, and after a pleasant lunch in a restaurant in New York called L'Absinthe, Monica said, yes, I will found an American organization.
So how many members do you have?
Uh, we can't really talk of membership because we're not an association that requires memberships. So we have a board of trustees and advisors of about 17 people, and then we have faithful donors. Since the organization was established, we've had over 350 donors. And then we have a number of people who are associated with our work, who participate in our events. So we have about 800 people whom we could consider our members.
What kind of activities do you have?
Well, first, let me tell you about our mission, maybe. So our mission is twofold. First, it's to raise funds in the United States for the conservation of the cathedral, and that we implement through projects, and I will talk about that. Then the other part of our mission is to foster the radiancy and the vibrancy of the cathedral in the United States, largely through cultural events. So in terms of projects, we have financed the restoration of several stained glass windows in the cathedral. Our inaugural project was the restoration of the 5 lancets in the south portal. Then we financed the restoration of a bay window in the upper clerestory of the nave. Currently, work is underway and almost finished in the north transept, where we are financing two bay windows. We also have a number of cultural projects. We co-financed the production of a film on the restoration of the cathedral, which is called Chartres, Light Reborn. And it's a film that essentially documents the work of all the artists and craftsmen and women who worked on the nave of the cathedral. We also restored or financed the restoration of a 17th century painting, which is in the cathedral below the lancets in the south portal. And it's a very interesting painting because it's an anonymous copy of Raphael's last painting of the Transfiguration. In addition to that, we also financed the um, the restoration of some of the column statues, which are now exhibited in the treasury of the cathedral. And the treasury was re-inaugurated in September of 2024, of last year. And it's very exciting. Those statues are absolutely magnificent. And they had been previously exhibited at the Cluny Museum as part of the exhibit of Gothic sculpture when the museum reopened in 2008, if I'm not mistaken. Now, in terms of cultural programs, over the years, we've had a series of conferences in association with Harvard University. We also showed the film, which I mentioned earlier, in various venues in Charlottesville, in North Carolina, at the East Wing Gallery in Washington, D.C., in Boston at the Museum of Fine Arts. We also showed the film in New York with Columbia University, in Minneapolis and Milwaukee. And the film also was selected in several American film festivals. So it has given quite a bit of publicity, I would say, for the cathedral. Now, we've also started a scholarship program. We, our co-founder, Servane de Mattheus, passed away a few years ago, and in her honor, we created a scholarship fund for young scholars or professionals who are interested either in a specific theme of the cathedral or in medieval history. And so far, we've given three grants. And last year, we started quite a large educational program in the Washington, D.C. area, thanks to a staff grant given by the Consulate General of France in Washington. And it had to be focused on educational institutions. So we worked with the Lycée Rochambeau, with the Alliance Française, with another French Montessori school, and we also started discussions with the Washington International School, with whom we're going to have a program in 2025. So that has enabled us to reach about 750 children of various ages, from the little ones, 3 to 18, I would say, and some adults as well, through the Alliance Française program.
Dominique, I understand that the goal for the millennium, for the year 2024, 2025, your goal is to reach $1 million and to restore part of the cathedral. And you already have reached 30% of that amount, which is pretty good, but still, it's a challenge for donors to make sure that you reach that goal for the millennium.
That's right. Yeah.
So, as I mentioned at the beginning, it's a millennium of Chartres Cathedral, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it must be a busy year for you. I mean, I imagine. Do you have some highlights or? I have a question. Do you organize trips to Chartres?
Yes,
You
that's
do.
part of our regular activities. We've organized annual or biannual trips. Actually, I'm trying to organize one pretty soon in February, so that people would have a chance to go up the scaffoldings of the North Transept before they complete the work and take it down. I mean, seeing the cathedral way above is absolutely extraordinary. You need the stamina to climb 13 flights of steps, but we take our time, and it's really an incredible experience. Yeah.
How do you explain the attraction of the Americans for Chartres?
It's very broad, you know. It ranges from people who, so to speak, grew up with Chartres, Americans who grew up with Chartres. You know, at the end of the Second World War, the cathedral was literally saved from potential shelling by an American colonel named Colonel Wellborn Griffith. And he went behind enemy lines and verified that the enemy was not in the towers of the cathedral. And he managed to rescind Patton's order to shell the cathedral in case the enemy was hiding in the cathedral. Unfortunately, a few hours after that happened, and he managed to send a message, he was killed in an ambush during the liberation of a small town just outside of Chartres. But as you well know, American troops stayed in France, and I've met several children of those people, those soldiers, who stayed in France and who would take their children to Chartres. And we've had for generations, you know, people who, those children have taken their wives or their children to the cathedral, or their grandchildren. But you also have a large group of, you know, art historians, architects, photographers, people of all faiths also. Of course, it's a Catholic cathedral. But so you have many Catholics from the United States who go to Chartres, but you also have people of many other faiths. Chartres has a labyrinth, and as we know, labyrinths, you know, are not only present in Catholic churches, but they are in all faiths. You find labyrinths. Actually, we're going to have a conference on labyrinths next month. So we'll advertise that, including through the Comité-Tricolore bulletin. Yes. So
Of
it's
course,
very, very broad. Yes. Yeah.
of course, Chartres has inspired many artists, painters, musicians, writers, of course, Peggy and Grisman. Do you think it has? Well, let's talk a little bit about the history of the cathedral. Not much of the original structures is left. Because I was surprised by the number of times the cathedral has burned, a lot of fires over the centuries. So can you talk a little bit about?
Sure, sure. So, you know, when when I made a presentation last year to the 12th graders at Lycée Rochambeau, I had a slide which showed over time, you know, all the major fires of the cathedral, at least those we know about. So you had 1120, 1134, 1194. 1836, and even in 2018, there was a small fire in the cathedral. Now, there is a lot left of the early cathedral. From what is left of the cathedral that Fulbert found when he arrived in Chartres in 1006, if I'm not mistaken. There was already a cathedral, Romanesque cathedral, and when there was the fire of 1020, by then he had become the bishop, but the what is today called the crypt of Fulbert is what is left of the cathedral of the 9th, 10th, 11th century. And it's not insignificant, actually. So, in fact, Chartres has two crypts. It has the crypt of Fulbert, in which there is part of this original Romanesque cathedral. And on top of that, then when Fulbert started the reconstruction of the cathedral and committed to build a much larger building, then he started with a crypt. And that took 4 years. And in 1024, that's when Fulbert wrote a letter to the Duke of Aquitaine in which he said, we've now finished the whitewash of the walls of the crypt. And that's why we are taking as the year for the 1024 as the year to celebrate or start the celebrations of the millennium. It's because that was when the crypt was completed and therefore Mass could be celebrated. The formal consecration of the church after it was completely rebuilt was in 1260. But in the meantime, the cathedral was completely rebuilt after sorry, I'm jumping centuries here, but then you have the 12th century church, and at the end of the 12th century, in 1194, you had another major fire. But the crypt survived. The west facade of the 12th century survived. But when they reconstructed the church at the beginning of the 13th century, then they elevated the walls and completed the construction of the cathedral as we know it today. So in addition, it's significant that there was a large collection of the 12th century stained glass that survived the fire of 1194, including the famous Blue Virgin, as they call it in English, Notre-Dame de la Belle Verrière in French. But as they reconstructed like for the window of Notre-Dame de la Belle Verrière, the 12th century window was too small for the new Gothic openings. So they completed, the opening with 13th century glass. But it makes it that Chartres, Notre-Dame de Chartres, has the largest collection of 12th and 13th century stained glass under one roof in the world. So that's something absolutely unique. And that's also why Chartres was the first French monument to be registered on the list of World Heritage Sites in France. Yes.
Oh, Chartres is very famous for its stained glasses. Do we know of course, not the original, I imagine, but at what time the present stained glasses were made? Do they go to the 18th, 16th century or before that?
Beyond. So there are about 175 windows which are 12th and 13th century glass. And over the years, some of this medieval glass was taken down and replaced by clear glass called grisaille, because there was a period where the canons felt that the stained glass was a little bit distracting and making the church too dark. So they replaced it with grisaille. And then so you also have, 14th century glass, 16th century glass, and you also have later glass. And actually, in the 19th century, there is some glass that was put largely in the crypt, but you also have some 20th century glass in the crypt by a Dominican stained glass artist named Kim. And you also now you have 21st century glass in the treasury by a South Korean stained glass artist. Yes. So I think there is also a message in this, which is that it's a very living cathedral. And we could talk, we don't have the time, but all of the embellishments, that took place through the centuries. One of the extraordinary piece is the tour de chœur, the choir, the stone choir screen, which which is in Gothic, very, very detailed Renaissance sculpture. And I think it may have taken 200 years to complete. But it's beyond imagination, what these sculptors achieved. Yes.
Each cathedral has its own treasures and
Yeah.
relics, and yeah. So, what are those of Chartres, the most significant?
Well, the one which is the most significant is the Veil of Mary. Uh,
Yeah.
s-
uh,
it's a cloth which had been given to Charlemagne, and then the grandson of Charlemagne gave it to the canons of Chartres in 1876. He supposedly didn't quite know what to do with it, but it has been a very important relic. And when there was the fire of 1020, it survived. And the same thing happened, during the fire of 1194, and the legend is that the veil of Mary, survived and protected the church. So certainly in the Middle Ages, this was a very, very significant relic, and to this day, it's one of the most significant relic. It is exhibited in the cathedral, and then on the 15th of August of every year, there is a procession in the city of Chartres with where they exhibit the Veil of Mary in the procession. But there are other you would not call them relics per se, but there is what's called the Notre Dame de Souterre and the Black Virgins, uh, which belong to the legend of Chartres and of Mary, as Chartres being really the unique place for Mary.
Fascinating. On a more personal note, Dominique, You have spent your professional life as an economical expert on development, if I'm right. Correct me if I'm not. And so, what attracted to this position of director, president of the American Friends of Chartres?
Well, it's not my involvement in Chartres was not my applying for a position or anything like that. You know, I took early retirement from the World Bank, where indeed, you know, I work on economic development all of my career. And I was still working. I had my own consultancy and I was still working. But a friend of mine who had reconnected with a member of the board of trustees of American Friends of Chartres called me one day saying, well, you probably don't know what to do with your time now that you left the World Bank. And this organization is looking for new trustees, and I thought you would be interested. And I've always been, I mean, since a very young child, always been fascinated with stained glass. So it did not take long for me to say yes and start meeting with the people. And so that was in 2010, and then in 2013, Monica Riley, said, Dominique, I'd like you, to take over from me. So the board voted me in, and that was it. But it's an amazing journey, I must say. And being associated with the celebrations of the millennium, where, we are expanding our cultural and education program throughout the United States is a great honor, I must say.
Sounds like it brings you a lot of joy and pleasure. Dominique
Absolutely.
Lallement, thank you very much, and best wishes for the millennium. And thank you for doing this for us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Till we meet again, I am Claude Porsella in Washington.